It was a gun.
I'm not voting.
If we want to build our nation.
The problem with the Somalians.
Just want to experience something else than a black man.
Move on, move
Can't be
forward.
like a horse with blinkers on.
Honestly say, I was about to have
Corrupt
sex and then I pulled
crap,
up.
but it's nice.
Hi there, my name is Joe Mennel from Street Talk, and today's discussion is going to be about hunger, about food.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Anna Hart, and I work with an organization called the Brewers Soup Collective. And very briefly, what we do is we've repurposed craft brewery establishments and equipment to produce soup.
I am Nolu Babalo Pulana. I'm from Vrygrond, and I volunteer for an organization called, the movement actually, called Vrygrond United for Change.
I'm a lecturer in architecture and at UCT, and been doing work in Delft, and been part of a Delft Action Network over the past 3 months.
Asanda is the young creative activist based in Vrygrond, very passionate about human, like Ubuntu.
I'm a social entrepreneur currently located in Muizenberg.
Okay, so Nolu, how much hunger are you seeing in your community, Vrygrond?
I think the main thing for us when we started Vrygrond was to connect the community over food. We Africans, everything that's discussed is being done, it was always done over food. And now with the current pandemic, we knew we had to then stand together. We knew that there were people going to bed without food, maybe they'll skip a few days and all that. And with the current crisis, that made it even worse. So it's kind of also hard to calculate because there's pride, there's stigma also in there. So we can say, okay, we know these people, these are the numbers that we're getting, but the numbers always vary from week to week, day to day. With establishing community kitchens, we kind of tried to feed the stomach that holds the whole body, your thinking. You won't be able to think if you're hungry. You won't be able to do anything if you're hungry. So the main core is getting you full with nutritional food, and then we feed the other hungers and everything else. Yeah.
Bradley, what about you, Bradley? What are you seeing out there in Delft?
I was humbled when I went to the co-learning sites of the Facebook and webinars, and I was inspired there by 3 principles, and that's a really personal one that I found very present in sites that we call sites of hunger and sites of marginalization. And the 3 principles was very clear: not leaving anybody behind. And that's coming from Factoryton, Kensington, Ocean View, and Bondeville. And I thought, well, wow, that's so powerful. And it's coming from people not being imposed, but really by the empathy on the ground. And that was one principle of not leaving anybody behind, and it's become a guiding principle in participating in the Delft Action Network. To give you some flavor of the network, it started out with 1 kitchen, with 2 kitchens, and then 15 kitchens, and 25 kitchens, and the question kept saying, do we allow more kitchens to join? And we could only allow the principle of saying, but we've committed ourselves to not leaving anybody behind. And now it's grown to 40 kitchens, and I think there's also some tipping points.
Just responding to both Nolu and Fadley, just why I shifted from art, and Asanda knows the art space in Muizenberg, which was designed to integrate communities, the Muizenberg community with Vrygrond into a global story, was precisely the recognition that people were going to bed not just hungry but starving a few kilometers up the road. So I made a decision not just to try bring 1 can of food into a donation space, but to really try raise real money to bring quantities in.
Look, there are so many conversations that have just been started with just 4 people speaking. So if you just look at the statistics, they were horrible to begin with. So before we even went into this pandemic, we had reached 30% unemployment in this country. More than 8 million children in South Africa are missing their 1 meal a day because the schools are closed. And so we have to figure out a way to urgently get affordable solutions to producing large quantities of soup or food and distributing it. And so that's where we came in. Craft breweries have the biggest pots. I mean, it's quite a simple thing. They do, you know, nobody else has a 3,000 liter pot to cook in. And so taking, you know, if we could have, you know, 5 craft breweries in 9 cities in South Africa, we could be feeding 1 million people a day, because we can produce in such massive quantity. I mean, just this weekend alone, you know, 5 breweries were providing over 100,000 meals. That's incredible. And with the ability to transfer those in large quantity bins, hot soup, to be dispersed among several soup kitchens, it's the most affordable and efficient way to feed. So we need people to work together on these kinds of solutions, because there are very innovative people here.
Sandra, what is your view on that?
Yes, it's quite critical, because the fact that remains, the hunger it faces major in the world, not only here in South Africa. Because like growing up in a space where you find like you have like a single parent that works at the domestic space, and then you're finding she's gonna be sent back home. The work she works, there's no UIF, there's no any element amount money that she can look after for the family. It becomes problematic in spaces. Unemployment is the big issue in everywhere, especially in townships. Our role, what we saw, it was like to seek a source of finding great source of information with skills that are quite different, maybe in a space of doing fundraising through different people, helping like township, helping people that are more not in the privileged spaces, and using like outside links. Because also for government, it took them time, like we haven't found any resources from our township, from government, to say like they've offered us help. It took us as youth, it took us as like a group, and also different links to work together to fight those challenges while we under citizens of South Africa, but not finding help from the source, the government himself coming to the people. So how do you find like an element of working and seeing, okay, if government is not doing anything, what steps must we take to play a role of looking after ourselves and feeding ourselves?
Asanda, I've given a lot of thought to this. Like I say, I've met amazing people along the way. We don't have a famine in South Africa. It's not that we don't have food. The real issue is the political economy, is that people who need the food don't have the economic power to go to access the food. But actually, that's not necessarily true. So many people are getting grants, pension grants, child support grants. That money should, if people are buying in the right way, at the right price point, be able to get people to survive through a month, maybe with a bit of a top up, with a bit of donations, with a bit of the feeding schemes. But if we can find a way to pool what people have, to purchase at bulk prices, so not to go into the retail shops, not to be buying, you know, at retail prices, but to be buying food at wholesale prices, and it is possible.
People as humans, we're always hopeful at some point. We're addressing at some point when they heard the government speak of grants, food parcels and all that, they kind of got, okay, the president is taking some action and is definitely going to come through us. But then one thing we got to really be honest is that the government is really corrupt. There's corruption all the way from the government down to, I'm not saying ANC politics, to the ground. There's really a lot of corruption.
I'm a positive person and an optimist by nature. I think that's a human spirit. But somebody asked me the question, Fadli, do you think it was this bad? And I said, I didn't think so, because I was on forums where one expected government to be there and they weren't there. And maybe to share one feedback from the Delft Kitchen Network from the ground. A constant comment is the government has left us behind. The government doesn't care for us. We're only a township, and we're just there. We're just somewhere else, right? And I think for me the points raised about it's not only about food. It's about a hunger of, I think, acknowledgement, a hunger of being a city. I think being a city that actually needs to fix what's fundamentally broken.
So now we are in a driving of saying we want to find spaces so we can farm, we can create like an element of growing our own food and using local enterprise people to, because it's very expensive. It's like the sister Claudia, what she's saying, it's truly, every time prices are becoming costly, it becomes a problem. And second time people, they'll ask you, hi guys, why you don't have meal today for us? And then when you let them know, hey, because of we didn't find excess of finding like a sponsor or a donor person to support us on the school, and we don't have money to buy a certain quantity of food, so that's why we have like this amount of food. So it becomes a crisis. So how can we use our innovations and also with links and people who can help us, and then we can fight these challenges?
The network that has been formed now, it is remarkable. It is heroic. It is magnificent. It's a shame we couldn't have done this years before. And before the problem got to be like this. But now you've seen what civil society has been able to do together. And we have kept this country fed, and as Nolu says, fed in the mind, fed in the body, in lots of ways in the 16 weeks that we've been locked down. And it is really remarkable, the spirit of, as Asanda said, the spirit of Ubuntu, the spirit of the can-do spirit of South Africans to help each other and to not leave someone behind. But going forward, hunger is going to be a problem that is, it's far worse than COVID. I mean, COVID is nothing compared to what the hunger situation in this country is going to be for many, many years to come.
I think what we've achieved thus far in the past 25 years out of our history, I think it's been a model that we can keep, that we need to keep building. I think we need to go. For me, a key one is I had a friend in South Korea, and when he hit there first, and asked, so how's it going there? And he made a very, very interesting point. Very interesting point that it struck me. He said there's an interesting trust between the government, between the health sector, and between civil society. And for me, this notion of trust was so powerful, because South Korea is the model, is the model country in some ways as how to deal with the COVID. But this abstract dimension of something that isn't material, I think that in our forums, for me, certainly even in the effort on the ground, however optimistic I am, the element of trust is so fragile, because I think of legacies of disappointment, legacies of not believing that we have the resources not to leave anybody behind. And I think that for me is a constant motivation, however difficult it becomes as we go through these kind of, in a sense, waves of the crisis.
I would like justice. My dream will always be justice, not equality. There's different, I think we've all been said, oh, we want equality. Equality does not really work. Justice does. And what I want is justice for everyone.
Because of I'm a creative young brother, I'm more inspired by like art itself, and also like in a vision of seeing like Fregon having an incubate space that will hold for different enterprise modules for young guys like me, and so we can work and try to find a sense of economy within townships, like to create an incubator. That's the passion that I have, but my dream is to just do music for life.
My dreams are really inspired by the young people. I see these young children, innocent as they are, and I think what we do now is for that future. And I think the dream is that in 40 years' time, they live in a completely different world.
I think we have to clean up this mess that we've made generation after generation, because I don't want to leave my children with this mess. So I want to leave it a little bit better than where it's at right now.
The dream is to continue to work with this conversation with Fadli, the architect, and I think it's spectacular that there's an architect in this conversation about food, to talk about integration of human settlement, working with Asanda and Nolu and Anne's vision of bringing soup, but to turn that into exactly what Asanda has described here, an incubator space to integrate in this very immediate way Muizenberg and Vrygrond, two totally different worlds, totally different economies, as the possibility for a model for a much wider future.